Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 1998 basketball drama film, He Got Game. Now, He Got Game is a film that a lot of people love, a lot of basketball fans love. I'm not one of them. I don't get the hype for this movie, to be perfectly honest. I thought this was pretty bad. Now, I don't think it was bad in a way where it's like rant worthy, but bad in a way where it is firmly below average. And in all honesty, I think Spike Lee shot an airball with this movie. And I know it's not a very popular opinion when it comes to this film, but that's exactly how I feel about this movie. I felt this was self indulgent to the max, over the top, and despite some good acting by Denzel Washington and some other elements, this is just Spike Lee shooting bricks. He's in a shoot around and he's just shooting brick after brick with this movie. To me, it's more like he got lame. Now, before I get around to sharing more of my thoughts on this film, I want to give a quick shout out yet again to Shine for requesting this video. Now, it's directed by Spike Lee. And Spike Lee is a director that I do agree has talent, but I think he has an overinflated sense of how talented he actually is as a director. And so what winds up happening is a lot of his films are very inconsistent when it comes to their visuals. And He Got Game is no exception to that. This has a ton of really bizarre directing styles in it that at times are interesting and add to the film in a positive way, but at other times they're distracting and they're really not good fits at all for this movie. And the slow mo in particular is really poorly handled, in my opinion. From the very beginning, the slow mo is just excessive and utilized in a way that doesn't really enhance the basketball scenes. It honestly hurts the realism of the movie. It makes the film look like a commercial. It makes it look like it's a commercial that Spike Lee shot for Nike. It doesn't make it look like a authentic feature film. And it's a wild distraction from the very start of the movie, and it just has numerous different scenes like that throughout it that just look very fake. They look very artificial, and the slow-mo I genuinely don't feel is used that well. And other scenes just feel like they're I wouldn't say preachy, but they definitely feel like a lot of emotion visually is being forced into the scene, and it's not really coming through naturally. So it just feels like there's a lot of fluff when it comes to his direction here, and there's way too much of it. And there are moments where the direction is actually pretty solid, and he comes up with a camera angle or a directing technique that enhances the sequence and adds to the drama or adds to the tension or adds to the basketball. But most of the time, the direction is just laying it on way too thick. It's taking these big swings, these big half court shots, and they're not even coming close to the net. As over the top and as self indulgent as the direction is by Spike Lee, the screenplay by Spike is even more so. The story of He Got Game is something that I think has its moments. I think the core concept of the film is something that I think can provide a lot of moments where you can really genuinely give the audience some extra added insight on what it's like to be a highly touted basketball prospect and how it's not all that it's cracked up to be and how it has its own unique pressures and issues and situations that only these prospects can actually experience and can connect with. And to also throw in this whole thing with a contentious relationship between the prospect and his father and hinge the father's freedom from prison on whether or not this prospect decides to go to a certain school. I think that that's definitely something that has potential as a story. But the problem is it's a Spike Lee joint. And as a Spike Lee joint, it's not going to have enough focus. It's going to have a lot of moments where Spike Lee is going to pull a Nick Young. And what I mean by that is there's an infamous bad shot that Nick Young made when he was with the Lakers, when he threw up a three and he celebrated too early and he thought that he made it, and then he turned back and realized that it missed, and then he was embarrassed. That's what Spike Lee does numerous times with his screenplay. He pulls a Nick Young. I'm going to throw up a three. It's going to be a big shot. It's going to go in. It's going to work. Everybody's going to love me. And then I'm going to celebrate. And then it's just going to spin out of the rim. Or he's just going to keep throwing up bad shots because he wants to make a big splash. He wants to make a big play. And as a result, like the movie just suffers so much. It's tonally just off. It's off its game tonally. And it's a film that really is hard to connect with too, because even if there's certain story arcs that you're intrigued by, Spike will throw up another bad shot and uh, affect the effectiveness of that particular part of his story. And it's frustrating. It's a frustrating film to watch as a result. And it's a bizarre movie to watch because there's these just bizarre swings and these bizarre bad shots that he keeps trying throughout the movie. From the beginning, it starts off with a bad shot because the whole idea of Jake getting out of prison for temporarily just so he can convince his son to sign with Big State is a big leap in logic. And if the movie wasn't so tonally over the top, then maybe it's something that I could have dealt with. But it is. It's so tonally over the top that it might as well be taking place in the same universe as Air Bud. I'm not kidding. Like, it legitimately might as well be taking place in that universe. So you have the stuff with Jake and his son Jesus, and then and calling the son Jesus is also another big bad shot, if you ask me. I know that it's supposed to be a tribute to a certain player who was called Jesus for a different reason, and it was Jake's favorite player. Regardless, it just seems like it's a completely unnecessary big swing. And it seems like it's Spike trying to utilize him being called Jesus as a way to satirize basketball phenoms. But it's so on the nose that it's just ridiculous. So even the attempts to satirize that fall flat. They don't wind up scoring because he called him Jesus Shuttlesworth. And you have these celebrities and basketball athletes, these famous athletes who play for the NBA or college basketball or different coaches who are all hyping up Jesus, and just the way that it's presented, it's just laughable. And I think that might have been the intent, but because of just how the tone is just so off, it doesn't come across as effective satire or effective social commentary. And then it doesn't help either that Jake is not the most sympathetic character. Like when you find out the reason why he wound up in jail, you're like, fuck that drunk asshole. He's in jail for murdering his wife because he got drunk one night and decided to physically abuse her and threw her across the kitchen, and her head wound up hitting the kitchen counter and she died. So tell me again why I should give a shit whether or not he wins the basketball match later on to gain his freedom back. Like, I understand the perspective of trying to have a flawed character in this kind of position, but to me, Spike made a mistake by making him so unsympathetic. Like, okay, maybe he does kill his wife, but it legitimately is an accident. And it's not him just throwing her across the room, or like for instance, he decides to go drive drunk and she's out there waiting for him. He doesn't see her as he's pulling up to the driveway and then runs her over. Something like that. Like that would still be really upsetting and make you not like his character, but it would be one of those things where you'd be like, "Oh my god, he was under the influence, he drank too much, he didn't wasn't paying attention." It would be more one it would honestly be one of those things where you would look at it as more of an instance of the ills of drunk driving than just some abusive asshole. And I definitely would have eased up on the way that he was treating his son too, because that was just too much as well. Like you couple that with him throwing the mom across the kitchen, and then him also um, hitting his kid. Like it's one of those things where like, yeah, fuck this guy. I don't care about his redemption. I don't care about his story. I don't give a shit. And Spike struggles with Jesus too, because then he has this whole bit later on after doing a pretty good job making Jesus look like somebody that you can root for and want to see succeed and want him to be a successful basketball player and make it big and in either college basketball or the NBA, because of the way that he uh, handles things with his sister, and he genuinely connects with his friends and so on and so forth. Because there is a moment where he and his sister get a little testy, they get a little contentious, but then he immediately apologizes. So it seems like, okay, he's not perfect, but nobody really is, and he's willing to apologize. He's willing to do that, which a lot of guys aren't necessarily willing to even go that far, even for their own family members. But then you have this bit that's revealed later on that he essentially forced his girlfriend to have an abortion, and you're like, well, that's really shitty. So now you're questioning Jesus and whether or not he's a likable character. And now you're like, I don't care about anyone. I don't care if they've got game. I don't care, period. Because it's also hard to sympathize with Lala because of all the manipulation that she's doing too with Jesus throughout the entire story. Honestly, the one character I sympathize the most with is a hooker. Was that the point? Was I supposed to sympathize the most for Dakota, this side character who represents a subplot that doesn't add that much to the story unless you want to see Denzel Washington come early? Like other than that, like what do you really get out of that? Because it's tied into this redemptive arc for Jake, and it's not really something that I think he's earned. And you get this other stuff involving these recruits and all these other people trying to woo Jesus to play basketball for them, or this Asian guy who's trying to get him to sign. And I think Spike did a good job showing the predatory nature of these recruits and these agents. But then he screws up again and throws up another bad shot when he has this monologue by Big Time when he's talking to Jesus in the car, and he's talking about how Jesus isn't going to be able to resist all these temptations, and the way that it's written is just so out of touch, over the top, and unnatural that it was like watching a car crash. The movie came to a screeching halt as soon as that scene began. And there's like more moments like that where you're expecting to hear a record scratch. Like, it's just one of those things you're like, what in the hell is going on here? Like, what is Spike Lee smoking? What is he doing with this entire plot? Eventually, Jesus does decide to go to Big State, but that's only after he beats his father in a basketball game. And the whole purpose of the game was if he wins, he can choose to go wherever he wants, and his father will leave him alone and go away and not be a part of his life anymore. And then if he loses, then his father will get his wish and Jesus will go to Big State. Well, Jesus wins the basketball match, and then he decides to go to Big State anyway. And his father doesn't wind up getting released from prison earlier. That doesn't happen. That falls through. So maybe the whole intent of it is that, oh, that was never going to happen, and the governor and the the warden just manipulated Jake into doing all of that. But I'm like, that probably cost the state a shit ton of money to do all of that, and it was all ultimately pointless if you really think about it. That, like, what motivation, extra motivation did Jesus need from his dad to go to Big State? I really think there was much extra motivation that was needed or necessary, to be perfectly honest. Because I mean, you could argue that maybe he was tempted by this other tech university, and maybe he would have gone there instead. But the way that they tried to recruit him was so over the top and ridiculous that honestly, I think it probably turned him off. It would have done the same for me. And he just decides to go to Big State, which was a school that he was thinking about going to anyway. The governor doesn't give Jake the promised reduction. And the ending is just even more absurd because it's symbolic. I think it's supposed to be symbolic. I don't think it's supposed to be literal, but the way that it's represented, it looks like it's a literal thing that's happening in front of your eyes. So Jake turns away from the prison guards. He grabs a basketball and throws it over the wall, and his basketball winds up falling into the court that his son is playing in, doing like a practice at Big State, and his son gets the ball. And I'm like, what? So his father throws the ball over, he throws the ball over the fence, over the prison walls, and then it teleports to Big State in their gymnasium, and then his son gets it. I'm like, come on now, Spike Lee. That is just so schmaltzy, over the top, looks like shit out of the Twilight Zone. It's another instance where like, what a bad shot, man. Like, and I'm not talking about a Damian Lillard bad shot to end the series against the Thunder. I'm talking a Nick Young bad shot. Like, what the hell was that? Like, what? And there's also like just random nudity too. Like, there's a whole scene of just this woman with her titties out. That doesn't really make any sense thematically or structurally with the rest of it. Just seemed like Spike Lee wanted to see some titties. Like there's just I'm just saying. There's just so many moments like this in the script where you're like, what in the hell? What the fuck, Spike Lee? What are we doing here? And it also adds to the just way too long runtime. The movie's over 2 hours and it does not need that runtime at all to tell its honestly pretty simple story about a talented basketball phenom named Jesus Shuttlesworth who's being courted by all these different recruiters, and he needs to make a decision, make a choice, to determine what his future is going to be. And along the way, he's also got to find a way to make peace with his father, or his father needs to find a way to make peace with his son. And that's really about it. There's not enough here. There's not enough structure or content for that much runtime. And that's why you have the whole subplot with Jake and Dakota. Because otherwise, this would be like an hour and 30 minutes or an hour and 40 minutes of story. But we didn't need that anyway. It just felt like it was overindulgent and excessive, like a lot of other aspects of this script and of this movie. I do think that it has some good messages at points. Some of the messages that Jake provides to his son, I think, are honestly rather poignant and rather strong. And I think the whole stuff about resisting temptation and manipulation when it comes to being an athlete, and the whole instance, or the whole deal of being recruited, I think that's definitely something that has merit, and I think a lot of people in that position could definitely get a lot of good advice from this movie, from all of that. But you have to sift through all this other unnecessary shit to get to those moments. And I don't think it's worth it. I don't think it's worth it to watch Spike Lee take numerous bad shots again and again and again, expecting to hear nothing but raucous applause, just because he decided to attempt these shots in the first place, or because of the name that's on the back of his jersey. But that's just me personally. And if you ask me, I think a much better film that deals with like the dangers of basketball recruiting and doing the wrong thing uh, is Blue Chips with Nick Nolte, because that has a lot of that in it as well, in terms of boosters and so on and so forth. And I felt that was a much better movie, much better story, just a better film all the way around. And that's not really talked about nearly as much as He Got Game. The cast, Denzel Washington is great. One of the main reasons why I don't think this is an outright bad movie is because of Denzel Washington. Denzel Washington is an all-star, and this film is no exception. Like, he's amazing in this. This is a really great performance by him. He played a character that I genuinely loathed. I hated this guy. The scene when he's like hugging his dead wife's gravestone, I'm like, fuck you. Like, no. You don't deserve that kind of moment, you piece of shit. You killed her in a drunken rage while you were abusing your son, you fuck. But that's great performance. That's the sign of a great performance. That's really phenomenal acting. That Denzel Washington can be the charming, charismatic kind of guy, but he can also be the guy who's just really a piece of shit. And that's really what Jake is. He's a deadbeat father. He's an abusive asshole. He's a drunk because he still wound up. He got drunk again, even when he was free for a week. He still had a moment of drunken rage where he assaulted somebody. The guy is just a douchebag. He's a dick. But Denzel does a great job playing that character and showing the different dynamics and the different nuances of him. And it's a compelling performance to watch. Ray Allen, on the other hand, not so much. I love Ray. Ray is honestly a basketball legend, and he always will be. He's not an actor. Apparently, he took like 8 months of acting lessons to prepare for this. It wasn't enough time because this performance is very stiff. It's not really that great at all, to be perfectly honest. You can tell that this is a basketball player who's trying to act, and it really hampers and hurts the film to me. This is why I prefer actors for the most part to play these kind of roles. Have an actor who has athletic ability play the basketball player. I mean, you didn't do that with Denzel. You didn't have Denzel's character played by an athlete or a basketball player or a former basketball player. So why did Jesus have to be played by a basketball player, by a professional athlete? I don't think that was necessary. I know a lot of people disagree, but I think the scenes when he's trying to be emotional with either his sister or with his father and these other moments, they don't work as well. They aren't as effective because Ray Allen has limited range as an actor. He has like unlimited range as a 3 point shooter, but he has very limited range as an actor. And I know Kobe Bryant was the initial choice. I think he would have sucked too, to be perfectly honest. And I mean, Allen Iverson's not an actor. So like it just would have been, in my opinion, probably equally as bad no matter what actor decided to play this character. Because Spike Lee was just hell bent on casting a real basketball player to play this character for some reason. And I really don't know why. Milla Jovovich, I thought it was a really compelling, strong performance by her, but it was really an unnecessary character. John Turturro was uh, good in his like very small role as the coach of the tech university, who was praying for Jesus to come to Tech U. Rosario Dawson played a great gold digger. That's really what she is. She was. Um, and Jim Brown was fun as Spivey. Didn't mind Joseph Lyle Taylor's crud up the two parole officers. Ned Beatty was pretty good too as the warden. Um, Zelda Harris, who played Mary, Jesus's a younger sister, like she was really strong. Some good acting by a young actress. Um, Bill Nunn was really good as Uncle Bubba, this manipulative uncle who's trying to squeeze as much financial gain as he possibly can out of Jesus. And I also like, the other teammates who played for Jesus's team, like Travis Best as Sip, and Thomas Jefferson. Well, I don't think Thomas Jefferson Bird played a basketball. I don't think he played one of the teammates. But yeah, I like Sip, and I like the other teammates that are featured in the film. Roger Guinevere Smith is a big time. I didn't really care for him that much. I think he was a lot better in All About the Benjamins than he was here. But at the same time, I can't really necessarily blame him completely and totally for why his scene in the car didn't work. That was really the dialogue that he was given, and that was a big part of why it didn't work. But yeah, the cast, I mean, other than Denzel and like Milla Jovovich, like no one really has like the most standout, strongest performance. See, that's the other thing. It just feels like this is a team of players that are just kind of jags for the most part, but with an all-star and Denzel Washington carrying the team, and then like an alternate for the all-star game who is his running mate. And then other than that, everyone else is just a bunch of scrubs. That's honestly how I feel about the cast here. Uh, Despite the fact that some of them do some good work, let's be honest here, they're not scoring that much points in comparison to Denzel. And then you have the cinematography by Malik Hassan Saeed, and it's a nice looking film, but at times the cinematography is just way too clean. It's way too clean for the movie that's trying to be gritty at points, and it contributes to the whole advertisement appearance of the movie. And then you have the editing by Barry Alexander Brown, which honestly I felt was a brownout for the most part. I thought it was some pretty shitty editing. A big part of why this film visually is so wildly inconsistent is in part due to the editing. The editing at points completely ruins the tone or the flow of scenes constantly throughout the entire runtime. I don't know what the hell this editing style was, and I don't know why Spike Lee thought that it was a good fit for this movie. But then again, Spike Lee is the one who's shooting bricks and thinking that he's nailing threes. So I wouldn't be surprised that he thought this editing was great. And then the music by Aaron Copland is another thing that really does not work about this movie. What the hell is going on with this music? From the beginning of the film with the basketball montage, it sounds like some shit you would hear out of a western from the 30s. Why does it sound like I'm going to hear somebody go say yippee ki rawhide in a scene where people are playing basketball? Well, I think that was actually the second basketball scene that sounded like that. The early basketball scene sounded like something out of Forrest Gump. The first scene sounded like something out of Forrest fucking Gump. It's overly sentimental and schmaltzy, and I'm like, what the hell is this music? And then you follow it up with some western ass sounding music, some country western bullshit, and then you get to the scene where Jake kills his wife, and it's got this music that's in the background that's sentimental and like schmaltzy and over the top. And I'm like, what the hell is this score? This does not fit at all for this. Cut that shit out. There should be no music here. The actions speak loud enough. We don't need this music. And there's just a lot of moments in this movie where you're like, turn the fucking music off. Why the hell is this score in the background? This score sucks. It doesn't fit the movie at all. It doesn't fit the tone of the scene. This score is embarrassing. It really is. It's corny. And then the songs that they used for the soundtrack were kind of there. Public Enemy did some songs for the soundtrack that weren't too bad, and I would say they were definitely a lot better than the music by Aaron Copland. But yeah, this is just a film that at the end of the day, I think it's a lame movie. I think it's nowhere near as strong and nowhere near as good as a lot of critics make it out to be. I honestly think it's a little more than a little overrated, in all honesty, when it comes to basketball movies. I just didn't really care for it. Just Spike Lee just being too corny, too over the top, too self-indulgent, and taking way too many bad shots. But that's just my personal opinion on He Got Game, and it's probably gonna get uh probably not gonna go over some well with some people, but oh well. And yeah, as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. See ya.